Hello everyone, welcome to this video demonstrating how to get 9front running in Virtualbox. 9front is a new fork of the Plan 9 operating system. It has some new features and new hardware capabilities, as well as some built-in tools that come in quite handy. So let's get started. First I'm going to create a Virtualbox image. I'm going to give it an other type and an other unknown version. I'm going to give my Virtualbox image about 1 GB of RAM. That should be sufficient for most things in 9front. I'm going to allocate a 10 GB disk image. Great. Now I'm going to adjust some of the settings of this Virtualbox image. First thing is I'm going to attach the 9front ISO that I downloaded from the 9front.org website. I found that the ICH-AC97 audio controller didn't work so well with the 9front, so I'm going to switch it to Sound Blaster 16. Seems to work a lot better. Under Network, NAT works fine for me. You can use Bridged if you'd prefer, but you're going to need to change the adapter type to the Intel Pro 1000 MT server type. Alright, so that's pretty much all of the settings that you need to configure in Virtualbox. Now let's launch our image and begin the install. Okay, let's boot the install image. Let's provide a display configuration. I just use 1024 by 768 with 32 bits per pixel. You can choose whatever resolution you like, provided that Virtualbox is able to support it. I'm going to use the PS2 IntelliMouse setting here because it supports the scroll wheel, which is kind of nice. Great. Alright, now I'm going to begin the installation by running the inst start command. Run through a series of steps here to install the operating system onto this virtual hard drive, this Virtualbox image. I'm generally going to use the defaults here except when I'm required to provide some information. Like for here I need to tell it that I want to install onto this Virtualbox hard disk, which is SDC0. We'll install the master boot record. When these prompts come up with the three greater than symbols, I'm just going to choose to write and quit each time. Same thing here, write and quit. Okay, I'll keep going through the settings here. Okay, now it appears to be installing the operating system to my hard disk. Just for a little background here, this is the Rio window manager, which is the typical for Plan 9 and for 9front. Just to show you really quickly how to move windows around, some basics. I can right click on the background here and I can choose move, and then I right click on this terminal window here to move it over to a different location. Just to get out of the way of this little status monitor here. You can resize these windows just by choosing to move your cursor at the corners or at the sides, and you can resize it. That works on pretty much any window in Rio. So let's wait for it to finish installing. Okay, great. Now it's going to set up the networking. It's asking me for a system name for this particular Plan 9 or 9front install. So I'm going to give it a name of 9f2. In my case, you can choose whatever host name you prefer. Set the time zone. Yeah, it detected my time zone correctly. We're going to do the boot setup. This is worth noting. The basic part of the Plan 9 or 9front boot is going to be on a FAT partition on your hard disk. FAT is the old DOS type partition. That's going to come up a little later on when we decide to configure a few things. So let's continue. Yes, install the master boot record. Mark it as active. And there we go. Now, before I finish, I'm going to unmount my CD from the drive. There, okay. And we'll finish. Okay. Congratulations, you've completed the install. Let's try rebooting the machine. Okay, so far so good. It seemed to remember my PS2 and telemouse and my VGA size, which is great. Then I'm just going to choose the default here, and the default user on any Plan 9 or 9front install is Glenda. You can create your own user account. There are how-tos on how to do that, but for now I'm just going to use the default account, Glenda. And you can see here that it's a similar screen that we had before during the install, except now it's booting directly off the hard disk rather than the CD image. Okay, so once again, I'm going to fix the location of this particular terminal window. In a moment we will fix it so it always shows up in a good location. Alright, so the first thing that I usually do with a default Plan 9 or 9front install is I fix the font. I don't particularly like the font that comes as the default, so I'm just going to edit a file here and change the default font. So SAM is the text editor in Plan 9 or 9front. Use that to modify my profile. Right, so SAM comes up like this. I generally right click in the white area down here and I pick the file, and then I right click again in the white area. So there's sort of a command area up top, and then there's the file buffer down below. So up top is where I'm going to issue commands like write and quit, but down below is where I can edit the contents of the file. It's interesting, when you use the up and down arrows, it actually pages versus going up and down a line. That takes some getting used to. I generally click on the line that I want to edit, and then I use only the left and right arrows to sort of move around within the line. Takes some getting used to. Alright, so I'm going to change the default font here. I'm just going to comment out this line. And this is really up to your personal preference. I tend to prefer this fixed font here, and I prefer this size, 9 by 15. But again, you can experiment with different fonts. Alright, that looks good. Now to write a file change in SAM, I click on the top part up here, and I just type W to write out the new contents, and then I type Q to quit. That brings me back to my terminal. Alright, another thing that I usually change is in Plan 9 and 9front, generally what happens is when you run a command like so, let's change that a little bit, it generally doesn't scroll automatically for you. See, it isn't updating. I have to press the down arrow to get to the bottom. I personally find this kind of annoying, so I'm going to just change the behavior of this. Another useful detail here is Control-C doesn't work to kill running programs like it does on Unix or Linux. Instead, you're going to press the delete key. On Mac, I have to hit the FN and then the backspace or delete key to make the to create the equivalent of the delete key. So that's the equivalent of Control-C. So it's either the delete key or it's the FN and then you press the delete key on Mac, which is what I'm running right now. All right, so to fix that scrolling behavior, I'm going to edit another file here. Actually, I'm going to edit the profile once again. So same thing, I'm going to right click in the white area, pick the profile file, and then I'm going to right click again to bring it up. Alright, now I'm going to find the location of where it starts up the Rio window manager, which is this line right here, and I'm just going to add the -s parameter. So that's going to make it so that when I run a program on the terminal, or any application for that matter, it's going to automatically scroll down, which I tend to prefer. I'll press the up arrow or page up or use the mouse scroll if I want to see what the previous contents were, but I just prefer it to skip down automatically. So that's what the -s parameter means. Another thing I'm going to do is I like when it boots up for it to automatically do the DHCP to get an IP address. So I'm just going to insert a line here at the beginning of this profile script that runs the ipconfig binary. With no parameters, that's going to use DHCP to assign an IP address automatically, so I don't have to type it myself. Alright, so another thing that I'm going to do is, this is completely up to you, this is more of a personal preference. Back to the line there that has the Rio in it, I'm going to put -B. It just creates a sort of black theme for Rio. Instead of terminals having white backgrounds, it's going to have black backgrounds and white text. Again, that's just a personal preference thing. Alright, so let's write out my changes to the profile. As I mentioned earlier, it's kind of annoying when you start up Rio and this terminal window sort of shows up behind the this window over here with the system status. So I'm going to change that. So to do that, I change the home bin rc Rio start script. All right. So the this Rio start script is called by Rio as soon as it starts up. You can see here that it creates a window at these coordinates, and that's running the stats command. That's what this thing is here. So the second command, window command, is going to run the shell. That's what it does if you don't provide a command here. So I'm going to fix here. I'm going to provide a set of coordinates so that it chooses a good location for it. Again, this is up to personal preference. So you can provide whatever coordinates you like here to make it show up wherever you prefer. And I'll write that out. Okay, next, I specified the Sound Blaster 16 as the audio card for this VirtualBox image. That requires a little bit of special configuration. So this is where I need to load that FAT partition. To do that is relatively easy to mount it so that I can change things. I just type this command here, 9fs 9fat. That's going to mount it. See, there's that scrolling behavior that I was talking about earlier that I hope will be fixed next time I reboot. I had to press the down arrow to bring the next line, the next terminal prompt line up. So I'm going to modify in the 9fat partition the plan9.ini file. So this is as you can see where the IntelliMouse, the VGA size were already specified. I'm going to add a new line here for the audio. It seems that VirtualBox assigns this virtual Sound Blaster 16 card, this I/O port, and this IRQ and DMA that I'm specifying now. I add a new line at the end just to make sure there's just one extra new line at the bottom of the file here. I think that's important. I believe I hit a problem where I didn't provide an extra line at the end, a blank line. So just make sure that you have this blank line here. Alright, so let's write out the file like we usually do. Okay, great. Now I'm going to try a reboot and see if things look a little better if all my customizations show up. So to do that, there's the fs halt command. If you provide -r, that does a reboot. So that's what I'm going to do, fs halt -r, and that should reboot the image. Okay, so same thing here. I'm just going to log in as Glenda. And great. Okay, so now you can see that the terminal window shows up right away in a good location, doesn't get blocked by this stats window. It has a black background and the white text, which I prefer. Alright, and if I do something like IP ping, let's just ping Google, we can see there that the networking is working, the DNS is working, which is great. And if I show you here, see the scrolling, it's going to automatically scroll downwards for me. Great, so I think that works a lot better. So let's just break this. I'm just going to hit the delete key. Again, on Mac, it's FN and then delete. That does the right thing. All right. On 9front, it doesn't come with the Go language. I've been doing a lot of work with the Go language lately, and I'd like to use that on Plan 9. That is relatively easy to do. The 9front comes pre-installed with Mercurial, which is the SCM system that the Go project uses. So for within my home directory here, I'm just going to do an HG clone on the release branch of the Go language repository. Alright, so I'll run that. Alright, this is going to take a little bit of time. In the meantime, I can give you a little bit more background on this Rio window manager, which certainly takes a little bit of time to get used to. If I want to bring up another terminal window, what I do is I right-click on the background here, and previously I used the move and resize, but I can click the new button here. And when I let go of the right mouse button, then up comes this crosshair, and I'm going to use the right mouse button again just to sort of draw out the terminal window that I would like. So let's say I'll make it like that, let go, and there's my new terminal window. So that's kind of different, and also not entirely intuitive of how to do that. So that's how you bring up new windows. Now, if you want to run programs within this terminal, even graphical programs for that matter, you can launch them from here. And what they will do is they will sort of take over this little pane here. One of the more interesting features of Plan 9 is, for example, I can run another Rio, and it's sort of an inner Rio that's going to run inside this little panel here. So it doesn't look like much. You see this sort of purple frame. That's sort of the only clue that you really have that there's this inner Rio running. So yeah, within this inner Rio, I can actually draw another terminal, which is kind of interesting. Notice that it doesn't have the black background. That's because I forgot to specify the -b parameter. So Rio is running with the default white background. Alright, so if I want to exit that terminal, I just hit exit. And if I want to, let's see, if I want to get out of that Rio there, okay, so that brings up another interesting point. This window here, let's say I don't want it anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the desktop here. I'm going to say choose delete. And then I'm going to right click on any window and it will just delete it, it'll get rid of it. It'll just kill the program that's running in there. Alright, meanwhile, I'm still cloning the Go code. This will take certainly some time. In the meantime, let's try something a little different. I'm going to bring up a web browser. So again, I go to New, and I sort of sweep out the size that I want for the new window. I'm just going to leave a little bit of overlap here so I can see what's going on with my clone operation. And I prefer the Mothra web browser. It seems to work more like I expect. So I'm just going to launch Mothra here. And once again, you can see that this graphical application is taking over the window that I had for the terminal, which is kind of different from what I'm used to, at least on any other operating system, but it's the way that it works in Rio. So as you can see, I can browse simple web pages only. It'll handle some level of graphics, but it doesn't run any JavaScript or anything like that. So certain websites just don't work very well. Wikipedia happens to be one that works relatively well. So let's try that. Alright, I'm going to download an audio file and just demonstrate really quickly how you can play an audio file. So let's click on this one here, and it's going to download. It's a neat little progress monitor that shows up on the top left. Okay, great. So I'm going to exit the Mothra browser now. Is it okay? Yes, right click. Yeah, it's okay to exit. Alright, so you can see here I've downloaded this OGG formatted audio file. And to play that really quick, I just, because it's OGG, I can go OGG audio, OGG decode. I reference the file. By the way, this is a neat little trick. In the RC shell on Plan 9 or 9front, there is a, although you can't use tab like in Bash to complete a file name, it is possible in some cases to hit Control F. It will complete the file name, which I find kind of handy. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to run, play that file. So this one here, it does sound sort of like a MIDI file, but it is actually a real audio file. It'll play audio files relatively well, even through Virtualbox, which I find kind of interesting. Alright, so if I just want to kill that again, I just hit the delete key. So that's the equivalent of Control C again. Alright, the Go program is, the Go source code is still downloading. It takes some time on large Mercurial repositories to clone everything. Okay, while we're waiting for that to download, another interesting fact about Plan 9 and 9front is that there's no path variable like you have in Windows or Linux. So if you look here, I go $sign path. Oh, and it proved me wrong. Anyways, it doesn't work in the traditional way, the path. Generally what happens is there are these what they call union mounts. So if I look here, generally the executables that you're going to be running from the path are going to be in the /bin directory or subdirectories thereof. So for instance, earlier I ran the audio OGG program, so I can go to bin audio. And you'll see here, yeah, there's OGG as well as MP3 deck, so if you have an MP3 file or FLAC, what have you. So they're in there. Similarly, people put things under the bin IP, things like ping and various IP level utilities, so they can find them there. So I can run, I run those things that way, but these different binaries can come from different places, and they can sort of be automatically bound into /bin, which is kind of interesting. So for example, I could, in my local home directory, there's a bin directory there. I could bind that into the bin directory by calling bind -a, which means append. And I could say, hey, bind this bin directory that's in my home to /bin. And that's not going to clobber everything that's already in /bin. All it's going to do is append any additional binaries that I have in this bin directory, and it'll make them appear as though they are in /bin. So in a moment when I have Go installed, I'm actually going to union mount the bin directory that with the Go binaries into the /bin directory, so I can just run the Go tool. Okay, great. Go source code has been downloaded, and from the Go directory I can just run source make.rc. That's it. Source make.rc. Right. Try it from in there. So this is going to build Go. Go is kind of a natural fit for Plan 9. It actually inherits some of its toolchain originally from the Plan 9 C toolchain. Okay, great. Here we go. So install Go for Plan 9 3D6 in user glenda go. Install commands in user glenda go bin. Right, so that's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bind user bind -a user glenda go bin to /bin. Alright, so this is what I was talking about earlier. If I ls/bin, nothing's gone, but the go command, for example, is there. I can run go help and get the help. Alright, so if I want to make this permanent, I'm going to need to modify my profile again with the SAM editor. Alright, so just after the last bind here, I'm going to bind -a $home go bin to /bin. So that's going to make it permanent. So when I reboot the system, the go will be on my path, or will be in the /bin directory. Which is what I want. Quit. Great. So that's pretty much all I wanted to demonstrate. This is just how I get a 9front system up and running and install the various utilities and drivers that I care about. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.